All right, good morning, everybody. We're just going to give a few more seconds to let more people join here in a moment. I'm Galen Etlin with Act On Software, and we'll get started here momentarily. All right, again, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining our session today. Future Proof Your Funnel, 4 strategies to modernize your demand generation programs. Like I said, I am Galen Etlin with Act On Software. I'm going to be your host and moderator today, and we are talking about how you can update your demand gen programs to keep up with the shifting market. Obviously, a lot of moving parts for you all out there. So before we get started, I'm going to give you some housekeeping details here. This webinar is being recorded, and you will receive the on-demand version and slide deck within 2 business days. And during this session, we will take questions throughout. So if anything pops up, please feel free to type it into the Q&A box on the Zoom webinar dashboard. And finally, there is a brief survey at the end of this webinar. So if you feel inclined, we really appreciate your feedback, and we love to improve this experience for you in the future. So let us know what you think. And with that, let's welcome today's presenters. We've got Elias Crum, founder and CEO of The Marketing Guys, and Dom Catabay, director of demand generation here at Act On Software. I'm going to let them each share a little bit about themselves now. Dom, let's start with you.
Great. Thanks for the intro. So yeah, as Galen said, I am Dom Catabay. I lead the demand gen function here at Act On Software. A little bit about myself. I've been in the marketing world for about 8 years now, dating myself here. I'm responsible for pretty much all things inbound and outbound marketing at Act On Software. So it's a little bit of everything. It's fun, a lot of data. But yeah, really excited to be here with Elias to cover the topic.
Well, thank you, Dom. I'll introduce myself as well. So I'm Elias, calling in from the Netherlands today. And as I typically say, I'm usually connected longer to Act On than the people that Act On themselves. So we've been an Act On partner with Marketing Guys for the last 10 years almost. We're a B2B MarTech agency. I'm not going to talk about Marketing Guys too much, but as you can see, we're based out of the Netherlands. So in the Amsterdam time zone, we work worldwide, and I've shared some logos of shared customers that we work for here today to give you an impression. Marketing automation is something we do, but we more or less cover the whole MarTech and sales stack for B2B companies worldwide. I'll give it back to you, Gabe.
Excellent. So yes, today we're going to be talking about these 4 major topics: adapting for the self-serve buyer, going beyond a best-in-class, acknowledging generational shifts, and using data to find future trends. So with that, take it away, you both.
Yeah. So the first trend is adapting for the self-serve buyer. It's something Dom and I recognize very fast within the changing B2B environment. And to more or less start off with is something Gartner stated in their report. They have a CMO report that comes out every quarter, and end of last year they brought out this report, and one of the statements they did was the one I put it down here on this slide, which is, I think, very recognizable for a lot of marketers out there. Is they get more and more platforms and tools. About 25 to 30% of the whole marketing budget is spent on MarTech tools. Marketers use like anywhere between 30 and 40 tools, from marketing automation to Canva to all kinds of organic SEO tooling and of course conversion tooling. But this technology, so this use of technology and having more and more tools doesn't necessarily lead to enhancement. So it's as they call it here, a Pyrrhic victory, which is a victory that more or less has the same outcome as a defeat. So that's something a lot of marketers will recognize. The fact that they spend more and more on marketing, the fact that they have more and more MarTech in-house doesn't necessarily mean that the customer experience enhances. So you need to make sure that you recognize the experience and the change in behavior here. And one of the changes I've seen is on the next slide, which is the younger the people are, the less they are willing to speak to a sales rep. So from Gen X up, in millennials, it's even over half of the people prefer a rep-free experience, which is something that is quite new to B2B organizations. So in a lot of organizations, we still see the use of the sales rep. Personal selling is one of the things that is emphasized on a lot, but it's not necessarily preferred by the buyer. And especially the millennials are, well, in majority saying we would prefer a rep-free experience. And I'm going to elaborate on this a little further in one of the other trends, but it's something you have to keep in mind because they, it's not as black and white as it's put on paper here, because they do want to talk to sales reps in certain cases, but not necessarily in the beginning phases. The trend we're seeing here is a trend towards self-service, especially in the early phases of the buying stage, and it's something a lot of marketers probably will recognize. It's a trend which is also different, and you have to act on, because the way we as B2B marketers were used to doing demand generation, for example, and lead generation is, as I refer to as white paper marketing. So we put a lot of white papers behind some forms, and we hope people a couple of percentage of people will fill those out, and we'll follow up on those. We put a demo button on top of each website, which doesn't necessarily lead to demos anymore. It's something that used to work, but not working anymore. How do you think about that, Don?
Yeah. As a millennial myself, I think a lot of it is driven by the fact that we're very easily distracted, and patience is a little bit lower when it comes to a sales process that might take a lot of time. So I think the biggest thing that you can do is just be transparent with all of your content and your marketing. And one of the strategies that I see people doing more regularly, which it's not for everyone, and it's a hard transition to make, is shifting to having ungated content everywhere. So as Elias said, your ebooks, your white papers, not hiding them behind a form and making them easily accessible for these buyers, gives them the opportunity to do their pre-purchase research without having to talk to anybody. I think that creates a more pleasant experience for them. The offshoot of that being that you're no longer capturing this information and able to nurture them in an easy way. So that shift really does require you to be fully prepared to look at other avenues to pull names into your system, and just be understanding and realistic of the fact that you're going to have a lot of people who are doing research on your site, doing research on your site that you're going to have no idea who they are. And that's going to become especially apparent as a trend of data privacy starts to continue to grow, beyond just GDPR, beyond the California acts around data privacy, and the rest of the United States is kind of following suit and starting to build out additional data privacy laws. So you have to be a little bit more creative with the way you're capturing that information. And I think the last piece I'd add here is the shift is also going to shift the way you're messaging as a sales team. No longer, like, someone downloads additional resources to help them do research, like, you can't follow up with a demo request anymore. I mean, you shouldn't. And I think the reason we have that is, if I'm downloading an ebook, unless I'm downloading an ebook, how to purchase marketing automation software, that's not really intent. It's not showing that I'm ready to talk to anybody yet. So you need to be a little bit more focused on the education aspect. If you're going to follow up as a salesperson to those types of leads, send them more content that's related to what they're doing research on. So make their job easier, make their life easier. And essentially your goal here is to reduce barriers to entry.
I think that's also shown in the next slide, Don. This the different phases that viewers can see here is well, this is basically a chart coming from a Forrester research, which you can find on, I think, Outreach's website. It's also in the sheet. So after you get the recording, you can look it up. It's available for free. But that's where I got this. And one of the striking things here, you can see that especially within the discovery phase, people are very much focused on self-serving stuff. So what you're referring to, like a demo, well, I'll come with some examples later on, but a demo cannot be it typically doesn't work as a first call to action anymore, where you can hit in B2B and say, hey, sign up for a demo, because especially younger people are just, seeing this through and know that the demo is just something, the demo button is just something to trick them into a sales call. So people really are sensitive to this.
Exactly. And I'd say the last thing that's really valuable here is transparency around pricing. I think I definitely hate the bait and switch. I'm not a fan of having to talk to someone to get a price. I understand like there's going to be some complicated pricing structures out there depending on what you sell, whether it's a product or a service. So that's fine. Like you don't have to say this is the exact amount you're going to pay, but if you can at least create buckets and allow people to find ballparks in those situations, it makes that pre-conversation research much easier. And it also is going to deter people who are just not going to be a good fit for you. Just because if someone knows upfront that they can't spend 10K for your product and that's your base, then you'd be saving yourself and them time by being transparent in the fact like, hey, we're probably not going to align here, no matter how much value you provide. So it is going to steer some people away, but at the same time, it's going to more likely than not steering away the people that you probably wouldn't have purchased anything anyways. I think that's all I have for that point.
Yep.
All right. So when it comes to going beyond best in class, what do you think?
Yeah, and this is what I put in here because I think it's really important, especially depending on the type of market you're in. So this one is super focused on content. I think it's sorry, Galen, there's no slide on this one. And most of the time there's two like very distinct types of markets you're going to have, and they're based on the maturity of your market. So you may be operating in this very niche or new market, or you could be in a mature market like Acton in marketing automation, where it's already been established as a market. There's a lot of players. So when you're messaging to these different groups, the way you talk to them is going to be completely different. In a niche and a new market, the type of content that does really well is going to be thought leadership type stuff, because a lot of people don't realize that they have these pains. A lot of people don't realize that there's solutions to these pains. So you need to educate the market and be more focused on how you fit into their solution and kind of resolve those pains than differentiation. So that's kind of when I say going beyond best in class, it's not a good idea to only focus on what makes you the best anymore. Especially if you're not the best in those categories. Like nobody listens to vendors who call themselves the best and says, oh yeah, you're right, that's probably true. That's always going to be taken with a little grain of salt. And then the other piece where this kind of differs a little bit is in more mature markets. So when you're looking at people who are already using a competitive solution, if you know that they're using a competitive solution, or they're just in an industry or a market that kind of, it's just a little bit more obvious, this is where you do focus on that best in class and differentiation. You don't have to focus as much on the education aspect. So the way that looks is, you don't want to waste. Elias obviously does work with marketing automation. So if you're trying to sell him a marketing automation solution, you don't need to inform him of what it does, because he's extremely educated in that and he's an expert. So instead, what you focus on in those types of conversations is how you're better than your competitor that they're using. And it does take some work to identify what they're using or get a scale or an idea of what that is. But going that extra mile as a marketer and as a salesperson really allows you to tailor your messaging in a way that's going to be engaging and pull them in. So all to be said, you need to do the research, make that extra investment to figure out what competitors are out there and who you're coming up against. And that will make it significantly easier for you to position your product or your service in a way that is engaging and grabs the attention of your buyers.
Cool. So Galen, I think we can go to the next topic, which is the generational shift. And I'm just looking at the list of participants here, and a few I already recognize. Sometimes from LinkedIn. I'm pretty involved in all kind of LinkedIn discussions. So go ahead and link me on LinkedIn if you're here. But one of the topics that is currently discussed a lot on LinkedIn is whether you should be doing lead gen or demand gen. And I think that often is triggered by the fact that, as we call it, white paper marketing is not working anymore. So you can't trick people into white papers anymore, or let's say easy content. That worked back in 2017. That's not working anymore. So you need to change. But first of all, before you do that, I would like to emphasize a little on why that is and what you can do, because those changes have a lot to do with the generational shift. So as stated in this sheet, and I use this diagram quite a lot in my daily work, but it's a diagram which represents the complex buyer journey nowadays in B2B. And I think there is an average of somewhere between 80 and 90 touch points before people have decide to actually buy the product in a B2B environment. So this is represented here, and this is also very clear that you need some ways of marketing technology and marketing automation to basically facilitate this, because you can't do this manually. You can't manage all the touch points, and you can't make sure that you share the right knowledge to the right prospects at the right time, and personalize that. Make sure that you focus on intent and non-intent, which I'm going to come on later on. But to facilitate this complex buyer journey, where people are not going through the buyer journey linear anymore, which they used to do, like white paper, download, nurturing flow, sales conversation, and then deal, no deal. Nowadays, it's just they go into your website. They typically have a lot of touching points, which is also on the next slide, Galen. So these touch points are also represented in the Forrester research I mentioned earlier. But there's a lot of touch points during that buyer journey that you need to be aware of and need to manage. And specifically within generations, there's a lot of difference between how you approach this. Especially the millennials and younger prefer to be self-serving in the discovery phase. So as Dom already referred to earlier, you can't trick people into a demo anymore. Ask them for a form with 10 fields to fill out before you can see a demo. So there's a lot of stuff you can actually do to make those people in the buying journey, in the early stages of the buying journey, happy. What the research also showed is, and I encourage you guys to look it up online and download it. I think it's on Outreach's website, but you can find this conclusion that the millennial and younger don't want to fill out forms in the early phases. They want to see a demo online. They might want to leave an email address for a full demo or whatsoever, but they don't want to fill out too many forms. They want to investigate on their own. But once they have decided that this product could solve their needs, they want to talk to a salesperson. But this salesperson, and that's explicitly mentioned, needs to be knowledgeable. So I'm always looking at these, let's say, traditional ways that marketing and sales are building up their funnels. Once an MQL, a marketing qualified leads, was handed over to sales, let's say someone signed up for a demo, this was handed over to an SDR. So especially in the US, this is common practice. So you have an SDR, a sales development rep, which does the first call and basically only needs to qualify through a BAM principle, right? Budget, authority, need, and time frame. So if they pull those people or drag them through that BAM, they are qualified. And if they're qualified, they might get a demo. And the people that filled out the form expected a demo, right? And older people might still be doing this. Younger people feel that this is just a trick to get them into a qualifying discussion. So you need to make sure that you offer them a self-serving environment. But once they are going through and they have decided this demo, hey, this product might be something for me, as Dom said, be transparent about pricing, because this is in my budget. I need to find out if this is in my budget. So if they have decided that this product might solve their needs, they want to talk to someone knowledgeable. So they don't want to talk to an SDR or a BDR. They want to talk to, might be a sales engineer, someone that can actually answer their questions, not the basic questions. And from what I've seen in B2B, the people that reach out in that stage typically know more about the product than SDRs and BDRs do. So you need to make sure that you let them talk to the right people within your organization. To really help marketers in their daily efforts, we have designed a meaningful commerce framework, which is on the next slide, Galen. And I don't want to go through the whole framework, but what you might recognize is the buying journey as stated by Forrester on top. So discovery, explore, buy, and churn. And we have basically put down the strategic, tactical, and operational level for each of the phases of the buying journey. And we've also included the channels and tools that you can use on the bottom. So basically, this is something you can keep at hand, and which helps you in each phase of the buying journey to do the right thing on the strategic, tactical, and even operational level. So I'm not going through this. It's just something like a cheat sheet you can use. It's here. If you want to have a cheat sheet yourself, or if you want to have a PDF, just send me an email or link me on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to send it to you. But we designed this as a cheat sheet for marketers that want to market in the new way, which is working. So which facilitates the buyer journey also for the younger generations. And keep in mind, I think Dom, I don't know if you mentioned the percentage, but a large part of the decision-making unit, and I think it's over 50% already is a millennial or younger in B2B. So this is something you'll recognize. And I talk to B2B marketers and sales and marketing people in B2B on a daily basis. Recently, I spoke to a CEO at a SaaS company, and he said, well, basically, we still have that SDR and BDR practice in place, and it works out fine for us. We get a lot of demo requests. And I'm not telling you to stop doing that. It's not something it's either or, but either and. So it's and I have to say so. Because the owner at that size, the CEO at that SaaS company, well, didn't know which people he didn't talk to, because of course people will sign up. Some people will still sign up for a demo. But what about the people that just skip your website and say, hey, I'm looking at this website. I don't find anything about pricing. If I want to see a demo, I need to sign up for a form in which I need to fill out 10 things. They want to know everything about me. They want to know when I'm going to buy it. They want to know if I can sign or someone else needs to sign in the company. They want to know everything in the band. And I can't even decide if this is something that should be on my long list. So you're missing out on a lot when you're not doing the transparency. So I would guess that, yes, the SDR, BDR, let's say train and approach might still work, but probably you're missing a lot of traffic and conversions from the younger generations.
Yeah, I think one thing I really want to add on to that too is Elias covers the forms and all the data points that we try to capture. And I think that the biggest shift in your mindset to make that easier and a better experience is to position the form in a way that you're only collecting the data points that are going to be important for us to capture in order to better serve the people filling out the form. So if you're looking for things like industry or revenue stream, revenue band, stuff like that, where it's probably more to help establish who you're routing these leads to versus the data points that are actually going to help inform the sales process and what type of information you want to share with them, then that's going to cause more bounce rates in your forms. And again, you want to reduce the resistance and the barriers to entry in order for them to get the information they need. And I think the one thing that the last piece I want to add here is on the last slide. There is a mention of 50% of the millennial buyers are super interested in the peer review. I think that's only going to increase as more millennials enter the buying committees for products and services. I think that that's a place where we feel like we can trust information. And any marketer knows that a lot of those review sites are a little gamed. They charge you to position your reviews higher, or they might reach out to some of your customers to help get those reviews. But at the meat of it, most of that content is authentic, even if the way it's sourced is not true or is not truly organic. The messaging is authentic. I would say most people doing those reviews aren't going to just fake it. Not to say it doesn't happen, but I like to think that most people are not. Most of the reviews you see on these review sites aren't fake. So do spend some time and invest some energy in collecting those reviews and having resources that are coming from actual users of your product in order to use those as talking points, whether they're quotes, you share the reviews themselves. And it's also great information for you to use to understand how people use your products and service in the areas that you need to develop further, because you're getting bad reviews on those aspects. Because we pay attention to that. Millennials definitely pay attention to that stuff. And if we're seeing consistently like the same thing is not working and it's something that's really important to us, like that's a huge deterrent to reach out any further. So all to be said, like, spend some time with your customers, even if you're on the prospect side, to get a really strong understanding of what they use your product for and why.
Cool.
So finally here, talking about data. I know this is one of the crucial pieces.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I wanted to share here, and I think Tom shares this vision as well. But so what I've briefly talked about it at the beginning of the webinar here, but the lead gen has changed over the last years. So in theory, we all know that there's funnels, and we could have MQLs and SQLs and sales accepted leads and all kinds of points, let's say the lead scoring points. And in theory, people will go through a nicely pyramid, which is upside down. And that's that's the theory a lot of B2B marketers know. The reality is a lot different. So the reality is on the next slide. So that's not like the champagne glass, but it's rather more like a hurricane or a tornado. And that's what a lot of marketers will recognize, because the funnel is not as nicely pyramid shaped or upside down pyramid shaped as it in theory is. In reality, there is a lot of people in databases, but only a couple of percentages really show intent and have buying interest. So buying intent. So rather than focusing on lead scoring or whatsoever, I would encourage you to do lead scoring on buying intent. And I put in a nice screenshot from the #1 most popular house on Zillow here, and which is located in Vegas. And I just looked it up, and it's one of the most viewed houses on Zillow. So to show you the fact that it has over 3 million views doesn't necessarily mean that there's 3 million people interested in this house or even can afford this house. So they shouldn't be in your intent database. The same applies to a lot of other examples in B2C, but of course, this also applies to B2B. There's a lot of signs that are there that typically are used by marketers to give in the traditional lead gen, give or grant points or grant lead scoring points to a specific behavior, has viewed specific pages, has clicked on emails, has has come through a specific channel. We all know this. And this basically leads to a nice pyramid-shaped lead gen funnel, which in practice doesn't lead to a lot of leads. So you need to adapt this. And you need to basically split your funnel, which is on the next slide, I think. But the way you could split this funnel is by really looking carefully at the behavior and the specifics of an intent and a non-intent buyer. So of course, the people without buying intent shouldn't be neglected. So the people that are on top of this tornado cloud that we've just shown might be interested to buy your product somewhere in the future, maybe even in a couple of years. You shouldn't ignore those people, but you should not nurture them like the old-fashioned nurturing methodologies that we learned when marketing automation started. You should rather look at the people that might or even have shown an intent. So if you have a buying intent, that is something you want to nurture on. And I think that was also mentioned earlier by Dom. It's also those are the people that sales wants to talk to, because you don't want to spend your time on people that can't afford the house that you are selling on Zillow, for example. So if you want to talk to people that actually show intent in your product. So the art here is to make the difference between people that show an intent or might have an intent and the people that don't have an intent yet. So those funnels can be split, and you can use marketing automation by this. So this is a screenshot from our own Acton instance, where we have our lead scoring, and Acton comes with different lead scoring sheets, as they call them. So you have a couple of sheets that you can use, and one of them for us is to score people on intent. So this is just a small part from the whole intent triggers that we've done, but we are really scoring based on intent. And if the intent scoring has a specific level, will market differently to those kinds of people. So this is really where you need the marketing automation, I would say, to help you to focus on the right people that show intent. Tom, to you.
Thank you. And on the note of intent, I think you may have some questions. Like there's two types of intent. The way I like to look at it, like you'll have your first party intent, which is how they engage with your specific content, which as Elias stated, like marketing automation can help you capture that data, as well as just kind of looking at your Google Analytics data or whatever analytics solution you have set up on your website to understand which areas are trafficked. And then the other one is going to be third party. So there's solutions like Demandbase, 6sense, ZoomInfo. There's tons of them out there, and they're the ones who are going to help you capture this intent data across the web. So I'd say first party is always going to be a little bit more valuable because that's going to be engagement with your specific stuff. It's a little bit more telling. But if you have it in the budget, like that's definitely something I'd recommend is to look into, at least to see if it's worth it for whatever you're selling, to kind of get that full view of the entire research journey across the web. Because if you're a small business, or if you're a company that hasn't been around very long, or maybe you're like number 6 in your market of whatever market you're in, and you don't typically come up in the search results, this is how you can build your ad and marketing programs to pull yourself up a level in visibility, as well as kind of get your name in the race when it comes to the purchasing decision that's being made. And I'd say one thing to be really careful for, messaging wise, for intent, never mention that you saw that they have intent. Everybody knows that this is a thing now, especially if you've been in marketing for a while. Like, you know that this exists. You know that most people can kind of get a feel for you can generally it's anonymized, but can get a feel at least from a company level when people are doing research on them. But you never want to say it outright. It's creepy. It's weird. It rubs people the wrong way. And it's don't do that. But yeah, so that's
Be
all I have.
smart, not creepy.
Yes, there you go. If you take nothing else from that, take that away. So beyond intent, I did want to cover some other data that you can analyze to assist in your targeting and messaging. So the predictive data based on engagements is definitely more of that first party. And the reason I put this here is because if you have a complicated, or I shouldn't say a diverse range of offerings that you have. So for Elias, for instance, if he consults on MarTech and as well as sales tech, being able to kind of bucket those types of engagements into the different areas that you support is really helpful for informing messaging. If I'm spending a ton of time doing research on MarTech, Elias is going to position his messaging to focus on the MarTech side of things. If I'm doing a lot of research on sales stuff, he's going to position the messaging that way. So looking at that data to inform the way, or I guess the drips, or the nurture programs that you're putting these people into is again going to make sure you hit and you don't miss. The next one is going to be closed won lost data. So this is definitely more of a targeting aspect, but if you don't already have your CRM set up in a way where your sales team is collecting the reason why we lost a prospect, the reason why we won a prospect, and all those other, like, here are the pain points that we weren't able to solve, you're missing out on a huge opportunity to not only inform your marketing, but also inform your product team on the things that need to be developed, or services team, again, this product or services, of what needs to be improved in order to make it easier for them to sell what you're selling in the future. Next is going to be lead conversion data. So Elias mentioned before that the things like lead, MQL, AL, SQL, like it's not something that you should focus your whole effort on, because the funnel is shifted from being the simple pyramid to being that more hurricane approach where it's that top is just massive. But the value you do see there is at each point in the funnel, there's going to be that conversion point, and understanding the data around those conversion points that's leading to those conversions is something that can inform not only the way you build your automation, but the way that your sales process is developed, and the way that they communicate with different buyers, different industries, different regions at each stage of the funnel. So that's information to help more with the messaging and the approach versus like a pure strategy. And then the last piece here is economic data. I think all of us, I would assume all of us have gone through COVID at this point, or experienced COVID. And I think with anything similar to that, there's going to be some headwinds and tailwinds that are faced. If you look at companies like Zoom, Slack, these collaboration and video softwares, like they had massive booms in COVID, despite a lot of industries like hospitality and restaurants having a fall. So being conscientious of the state of the economy and kind of like what's growing, what's not, is really great for either scoring down on some of the industries that you know aren't going to be investing on or in solutions like yourself, so that you're not spending as much time there, and scoring up on the ones that you know have a tailwind and are growing at high rates. So that's all I have on this point. Elias, did you have anything you wanted to add here?
Well, I see a question popping up, and Galen, you probably have seen it as well, and it's a question on this topic from Alex. Alex calling in from Zurich. We have spoken before, so welcome, Alex. Thanks for the question. The question he has is how do I get that intent data? Is that first party data? Is that second party data or third party data? And I would say it's both. So first party data is the data you have available there on buying intent, which could be anything into specific parts of your website, maybe specific videos that they have seen, specific behavior that they have shown. It could also be from your CRM data, in which you can basically see that there is an intent for something. So you could combine those. So in marketing automation terminology, it could be someone that is watching the website, watching the pricing, and from your CRM you know that they have an expiring contract with a competing vendor. That could be something that could be of help in intent. Third-party data is available as well. So that could be data from demand base or Terminus or any kind of third-party solutions that sell this data, up to data that we're using, which we get from, for example, our advertising campaigns. So that could be keywords that are used through Google searches, Google ad searches that show intent. So if someone is Googling on a specific intent and say, hey, I would like to replace my marketing automation by December, how do I do that? That could be an intent trigger for us, which is also shown and could also be lead scored on. So I hope that answers your question, Alex.
And with that, let's open it up to more questions. If you have any, please keep them coming. Really appreciate that one, Alex. Thank you so much. We did receive a few earlier that maybe we'll kick off here for the next 10, 15 minutes. It looks like we've got about 19 minutes left slotted for this webinar. So one of the ones that was sent, how does this shift that we're talking about really play into the way companies present content like blogs, ebooks, product info, which are often all gated content?
Want me to take that, Dom, or do you want to answer that?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay, thank you. So I think I could also refer back to the meaningful commerce framework that we see there is that a lot of content that you're sharing, especially if it's in the early phases of the buying journey, should be offered without any gates around it. So that typically means no forms. So make that as accessible as possible. And one of the examples I see a lot in B2B and, for example, in SaaS and software is that, as Dom said, be open about pricing. And the other one is demos. So I still don't get it why people can't just watch demos of a software before they need to talk to someone, and that's a lot of younger people just want to see that video. Some of the things marketers can use here is have an email catch or an email form before an extended demo, explaining them that they get like a 15-minute demo, which they can see online just by leaving their email address, and you're not going to spam them. Make sure you state what you're doing with the email address, but people are willing to fill that out. But they don't want to talk to the salespeople before they see an actual demo. But it's very comparable to, I would say, doing a purchase in a consumer behavior. But people want to check out first, want to scan, want to self-serve, want to know whether this even should be in B2B terms on their long list. And the way we are as marketers, we're doing this is. And I've done this as well, right, with a lot of forms, and I probably will still find a lot of forms on marketingguys.com which shouldn't be there, and we're going to phase those out. It's but the easier the entrance at the beginning is, the more you will get rewarded in the end. And so make sure that once you have that intent, and once they are in the exploration phase, you have people available that can answer the more difficult questions. So it's very similar to, I compare it to a lot of, a lot of people can refer to buying a car. You know, we all, I think in the US, it's more common to buy a car online than in Europe. And we have quite some European people here, but in Europe, we all check out every spec online. And if you're going to a dealership, that's an intended visit, and you have specific questions you want to get answered by the people that are there. They don't have to tell you how much the thing costs. They don't have to tell you how fast it can go. They don't have to tell you the mileage it gets, the gas mileage. But if you have a specific question, will it fit my blah 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 child seat? Can this seat be adjusted like this? How is it? So the more difficult and the more specific questions should be answered by these knowledgeable salespeople. So make sure you have people, especially in B2B, that know the answers to the more sophisticated questions.
Great. All right. Well, another question we got a little bit earlier. What are some strategies to continue to capture leads while still being forthright with information about your company?
I can take this one. I would say, number one, you don't need to ungate everything. I think the point that we've made in Elias Estate is like, you want to ungate the content that's going to help people do research and be educated on what you can do as a vendor. So things like white papers, having an easy access to a demo. And as Elias just stated, like if you have a little 2-minute, 3-minute teaser video, like that should be ungated. But if you have something a little bit more involved where you're going into the ins and outs of your product, having a simple email form just to like identify, oh, this email captured it. You could even, I'd even say like first name, last name email is totally fine. That's something that's not as I guess blocking for people to fill out for something that's a little bit more involved. So things like those are the ones that you want to focus more on not being so lead capture focused and instead being set up in a way that allows people to do the research they need to do prior to reaching out. But things that are a little bit more like thought leadershipy and not specific to your company. So like ebooks, things like webinars, those are still channels that I would say like it's totally fine to have forums. Obviously there's going to be a little bit more bounce rate. And I think the value in the forums of things like that is like you need somewhere to send this information to. It usually doesn't live on a specific page. Like, yeah, I fill out this form so I can get access to the recording for this, or so I can log into this webinar like most of you, all of you did. So things like that are always going to be there. And I'd say there's always also going to be channels that aren't ungated by nature. If you do marketing in social, for instance, like it's natural to have that form of thing because it's a third-party provider. Partnerships with content syndication providers or other softwares or other solutions where they're presenting your content for you. Like those are good channels to get names to continue to nurture people. And I'd say finally, like do some outbound. I think it's depending on your market, especially like outbound's going to be effective or it's not, but there's nothing wrong with doing it as long as you do it tactfully and you're not just spamming every single person in a company that looks like they could be a good fit. So spend some time. We mentioned those different data points that you can look at to understand and develop your ICP further if you haven't done so already. Do some time or spend some time doing that and you can pull cold lists and get them into your ad programs, put display ads in front of them, put or have them as an audience in your paid search, paid social. If you're in a region where you can do cold email, put them into marketing automation drips to nurture them and warm them up to the idea of you as a vendor, as well as some of the thought leadership that you provide. And again, like, especially for cold, like you don't want to go in and say, hey, this is what we do, want a demo. You want to go into, hey, like a lot of people in your position are dealing with this pain point today. Here's this really interesting blog that we produced to kind of highlight the strategy to get around this kind of thing. So be a partner of theirs in that. And that's an additional source as people continue to engage with that and re-engage with different content, like they'll naturally reach your scoring threshold and be available to pass to sales as well. So again, you don't have to gate everything. I would say just ungate the stuff that is needed for research on your product and everything else. You can or cannot gate. I don't think there's like a one size fits all approach to that, but yeah, make it easy to learn.
Yeah, I love that you're saying that because it's we have a lot of marketers in the audience, and I fully agree with you that a lot of business should come from outbound. It's not an inbound world only. I'll even go as far as saying that 50% of your business is probably generated by outbound. And this is where marketing and sales come together. And I love the way you explained that you should have a list. I typically refer to it as a dream list. And well, if you're a marketer and not too much into sales, I encourage you to look up Mike Weinberg and the books he wrote on sales. But this dream list of clients, basically, which is a copy of your ideal client. And an ideal client is a client that is happy with you, that you're happy with, and that you're making money on. So if you have one of those, look at similar customers, put them on a dream list, and go reach out to them with your sales force. With the compelling message as described by Don, and support this in marketing by having your list ready. You can upload those lists to LinkedIn. Make sure you share the right knowledge, give the right call to action, which helps them to make that decision, helps them to orient it, to basically help them through the buyer journey, and follow that by the campaigns that you have in your marketing automation solution. So, and I think, well, we have some more questions here.
We do, yes, and just about under 10 minutes to answer them. So the first one here that's on the queue from one of our attendees, what are your thoughts on chatbots like Drift for returning visitors, and what type of information should we surface?
Shall I take that, Don? Or? Okay. You're not on speaker, Don, so I'm assuming you say yes.
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
So I've got quite some experience there, and I think we referred to it earlier as be smart, not creepy, and that applies to Drift or you having chatbots as well. So you should really focus on helping the customer rather than showing them that you know who they are, because that's intrusive. So if you're going to show me on a website and personalize this and say, hey, marketing guys, or hey, Elias, you're back, how can I help you? That's not helping me. What is helping me is if I'm a returning customer and I'm in the service area, the Drift bot can recognize me if I'm connected to the CRM, for example, and will help me to in this red carpet treatment. So what I mean is, like, I've bought something and I will probably have a question about my last purchase. So ask them if they have a question about their last purchase. It doesn't help to show them that you know who they are. I would rather show them as if it's a new visitor or a prospect that is not identified yet and that you just have an IP on in Drift. Help them by showing the right content based on the earlier behavior that they have. So if you have content there that supports their buyer journey, a logical next step, show them that proactively rather than showing us, hey, Elias, you're back. That doesn't help me. So I would really focus on helping customers rather than showing them that you know them.
Yeah, and I'd like to add too, most of those chatbots, you can adjust what the messaging and what the conversation looks like depending on the page they're on. So if you're doing a chatbot install, make sure you do a full implementation and you don't like only get halfway there. Because as Elias said, like it doesn't matter a whole lot to say, oh, I know you're returning. But if someone's on the pricing page and they're opening up the chatbot, your messaging should reflect the fact that they might have questions about pricing. So focus the tree or path, I don't remember what it's called, the paths that you build on that to be focused on that aspect. Not exclusively like give them an option to speak about other things, but like that should be the focus. If they're on the blog, have it built in a way that points them to other content. So take that into account when you're building them if you're going to. And we use Drift ourselves, and it's we get a lot of value out of it. So I'll say like it can be a really powerful tool as long as you're doing the deployment in a tactful manner.
Excellent. We've got a final question here, again from Alex from earlier. What format works best as lead magnet for the different generations you mentioned today?
One of the things that I've seen working well, and Dom, you might add some to that as well, but one of the things that I've seen working very well with the younger generations is the use of benchmarks. So in all kinds of B2B environments, all industries, you can use a benchmark. So first of all, this works very well for your SEO because you're getting authority. People will link to your benchmark, and you have something you can share on a regular basis because it's a Q4 benchmark or a 2023 benchmark on something. And people are always interested to know what peers are doing. So they want to know how they're doing compared to the rest of the field in whatever industry there is. So a benchmark is always something that really works well as a lead magnet. From what I've seen, depending on the phase where they are, if they're showing intent, for us, knowledge sharing events work very well. So we've seen with multiple customers that if they're really if we can focus on people that have intent, showing them or inviting them to specific events, could be real in-person events. Those work out the best in our opinion, but that's not always feasible, right? So you can't always do that. But as long as they are very focused on this intent, so you're really helping them to make the purchasing decision. Show them the questions. So it's not going to be generic stuff. So in whatever industry you are, it needs to be very much focused on the states that they are in the buying that they're in at the buyer journey at the moment.
Yeah, I would add there too. It's going to depend on, and I hate answering this way, but it really depends on your market and where your position in the market. Us, for instance, like the marketing automation market is pretty developed at this point. So a lot of our content is, our channels are focused on thought leadership and kind of educating the market that we're here, and we're competing with the other solutions out there. So things like webinars do really well for us. Some of our thought leadership type like ebook content does really well for us to bring in leads. Social does okay. It's not the best source for us particularly, but at least not from a paid perspective. I think our organic social is a little bit more compelling because those people have the people who see that have kind of opted in to see that content. So that's a pretty well performing channel. And then I'd say the last one is definitely going to be email. And I mentioned before, like cold outbound works really well at pretty much any stage. I think like in early stage companies, like you can rely on internal or on referrals and inbound marketing to bring a lot of solutions there. But I think everyone's going to face a turning point where if you want to continue growth or the trajectory that you're on, you have to shift to do more outbound. So doing those outbound campaigns via email, again, the ads or positioning your ads, as long as you're relying on data, like Elias said, the intent data, so that you're focusing your budget on the people that are in market, or at least in market from a researching perspective, even if they're not quite ready to start doing any purchasing decisions or have those types of conversations, you're going to have more impactful programs. And I think that's separate of the specific channels. Using the right data to back your strategy is going to be the most impactful thing you can do.
Excellent. With that, we are coming up on the hour here, and I think that's where we're going to wrap our webinar for today. We want to thank all of you for joining us and taking the time, of course, asking your excellent questions. And I also want to thank our awesome presenters, Elias and Dom. Thank you both. And a friendly reminder to all of you, and especially to the one who sent this question a little bit earlier, we will be sending the slide deck and the on-demand recording in the next couple of days, so keep an eye out for that. And as I mentioned at the very beginning, there will be a survey that will launch at the end of this webinar, so we appreciate any feedback that you have to improve our future sessions. So have a great day, everybody. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Yeah.